Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of Journal of a Human, not Mental Health Advocate. Um, Today's conversation is going to go around the subject of PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. And why I'm talking about that is because I myself have dealt with PTSD. And PTSD like symptoms is what I say. And I'm curious if I'm belittling myself for that. And I didn't get my PTSD from war-torn events, such like that, what you think of with Army vets and whatnot. Mine came from a past experience relationship, which I won't get into now. Maybe one day I will. The reason why I don't like talking about it a lot is because my significant other at the time, who was a big reason on why these things were happening in my life and had her own stuff going on, isn't here to be a part of that conversation. And I don't want to be speaking from one side. Well, she can't give her side. So it's just not fair. So I do hope one day I can bring B onto a conversation with me here or somewhere, and we can go through that. I think it will be a valuable thing. And for the listeners and people, like it's important to have two sides of the conversation, especially with things like this. So I'm not going to dive into how I got it, but what did happen after 10 months of stress in my life, I started showing signs of PTSD that three therapists I talked to are like checked off 10 out of 12 things in our PTSD box that you have it. And thing is, for me, it really affected my life at that time. Um, One thing that affected me is I pretty much woke up every morning and I would curl up into a ball and cry in my shower, leaning on the side of the shower, head down. And I remember thinking, why is this happening in my life? How did I get to this point? And how do I stop it? That was the biggest thing. Like, how do I stop these symptoms and these feelings from happening? And I didn't know how. Luckily, through time, through therapy, and through working on healing and dealing with a lot of things, and the MDMA therapy I did, I've been able to take better control and kind of get away from those symptoms and those feelings. But really, why we're going to have this conversation today is because I hopped on a podcast last night and I was honest with all these podcasters. Like, I'm doing a big media push here, trying to get on podcasts. I think I'm doing three tomorrow, and these are like hour-long things. So it's like 3 hours of talking, prepping beforehand, and they're doing a ton of work to make it happen, get good, and help their brand. But I think I did 6 last week. I might be doing 7 this week. And why I'm doing it is to help Never Alone grow. I believe Never Alone's in a great place, but I think I need to have a lot more one-on-one conversations. I need to be out there for the people. I need a voice, and I need backlinks. So I hopped on the conversation with Mike, and Mike is from Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan. I do believe it was Michigan. He's a hunter. His podcast talks about like the outdoors and mental health. And I didn't really know what I was getting into. I didn't listen to his podcast prior. Like, I hadn't met the guy. We just did a couple of texts through this platform that we connected on. And I'm like, okay, man, let's have this conversation. I can talk outdoors. I can talk about like how I go for walks for my mental health, which I do. I like a walk on the train tracks. And we hopped on. He's got his Midwest accent. I'm like, I dig this. It feels like I'm back in school in Louisiana or Texas. Like, here we go. This is my guy. And we start talking, and I told him, my backstory, as you start every podcast with a backstory. And I said the PTSD and everything. And after I'm done, he's like, yeah, I can relate with you, man. Like, I relate because, when I had my stuff going on, and PTSD is part of my life now. Like, someone else has to talk about PTSD. What is this about? So I was like, hey, Mike, I don't know your story. Can you give me a little rundown? And essentially, abusive relationship with his partner, which turned into this situation, which turned into that situation. And he was literally like only months to a year out of it. So he wasn't out of PTSD. He was having all these symptoms now, but he was out of that situation. He was dealing with all the stuff that I dealt with 3 years ago now. I'm like, yo, we can have a conversation here. And it was one of those things where it's like, I knew we were gonna get off the other topic of just, like, being outdoors like this. This is a great thing to do. S so we talked, and, like, I was like it was literally just me and him having a conversation as 2 people, like, relating to each other. Um, and we felt the same thing, the fear of looking people in the eye. When you walk down the street, you wanna get the far as away from there as possible. It is the worst feeling when you're having these symptoms firing up at your rapid heart rate and your eyelids start twitching, and you start looking around for people. And you start getting this rubbing with your hands and fingers. And then my jaw starts going. I start going like this, like I'm on Molly or something. And it's just everything goes. You're like, oh God. And I remember those symptoms so well. And I believe he was going through them still at the time. So it's super awesome that he was going podcast talking about this, getting more comfortable. And I actually do want to have him on, talk to him here, just have a conversation. So we went and did that. And that was the first thing that's like, okay, this is dope. I can have this conversation with this guy who's dealt the same things, PTSD, which not a lot of people talk about, which I believe more people have than they're admitting to say, or more people have that are confident enough to say. And I'm like, this can go on his podcast. People can hear it. Like, this is a good thing. So I go on Twitter, obviously. And afterwards, I go on Twitter. I'm like, Mike, thanks, man. I had a great chat. We talked about PTSD. I can't wait for this to come out. And one of my followers, Lucas Lab, pops on. He goes, it feels so wrong liking this, but it's nice when you can find a connection like that. And Lucas isn't wrong. It is nice to find a connection. However, the thing that stood out to me is like, it feels wrong liking this. It feels wrong liking that you guys have a connection about PTSD. And I get that angle. But I feel if I was talking about something else with Mike, where it's like, hey, Mike, we both lost 100 pounds because we were obese and we're still on our weight loss journey. I think like a tweet like that would get 1,000 retweets and people liking it, loving, commenting on it. And for me, it's a bit easier probably for me to say because I'm out of the situation. I'm not feeling the effects. Why can't we have these conversations and like things about people putting it out there? Like I was putting out Twitter to the world. I'm totally cool with having a conversation about PTSD and going. Y'all should like it. You should respect it. And you shouldn't shy away from that text, that tweet. Um, I'm not saying I didn't want more from it, but it was like he probably thought before I'm going to reply to this, do I really want to reply to a tweet that talks about PTSD? Um, it makes me think. It makes me wish it was different. Like, why can't you talk about this? Um, we have set up these stigmas and these walls around mental health and uh, rape, whatever it may be, that it makes people awkward to have that conversation. And we as a society have made that happen. So it's not awkward to talk about, losing weight anymore. It's not awkward to talk about anything fitness, no matter if you're failing or winning, or food or anything in that area. And like mental health really is the same kind of concept. Um, I'm want to change that. That's why I'm doing this. I want Lucas to be like, yeah, it's cool, man. Great. I love that. Congratulations. The thing is, like, if I didn't put it out there and I didn't want it to be heard, then I would totally get what someone would go be like, hold up, you don't ever talk about this. Isn't your thing. And you didn't really want to see it. Then there, we're good to go. Like that. That's the thing. But I'm open for it. And I think other guys like Mike are too. And I think there are a lot of people there that would love to have a conversation, would love for it to be known that they're dealing with these things. However, they feel that people might be like standoffish or shy away because they don't know how to interact with it or be awkward and stare at them like, are you fragile to touch? Or are you fragile to deal with? And I'm like, it sucks. I want that to change. And I believe it is changing with how we're doing these things. But we need more people to talk like this. I think we need more people to Be like Mike, be like me, um, and find that platform or find that community or find that outlet that is wanting to hear from someone who's dealing with it and go in there without a focus, without a goal to sell something, without a goal to drive somewhere, and just have an honest conversation between two people about a topic that is somewhat scary and taboo to bring up in real life. These things aren't, though. Like the amount of people with PTSD. Here we go. How many people have PTSD? The statistics can be wrong. Google tells me 6 out of every 100 people will have PTSD at some point in their times. This is PTSD.gov 2021. About 50 million adults have PTSD during a given year, and that's just the US. Okay, this is a 2021 article from the US Department of Veteran Affairs. So this is legit, this is real thing. And I most likely, without reading into it, would think that they would be talking about just general vets and everyone going to war, which is huge. That's a lot of the people. What we don't understand, what we forget is there's people like me who didn't go to war. It was because of a abusive time in my life, like Mike as well. Car crashes, fights, other beating, like everything going on. There's so many other people raising this number up to the thousands, to tens, to hundreds of thousands that are dealing with the exact same symptoms. But the thing is, they don't relate to it or don't realize that they can relate to it as PTSD because they're not war vets, because they're not someone that we are thinking the only people that can have PTSD are this. And that needs to get out there and that needs to change. Um, I'm glad I was able to have that conversation with Mike. I'm glad I was able to see that tweet. I'm glad that I have a platform where I can tell this story. I hope more people find that confidence in doing so. Um, PTSD, many other symptoms, borderline personality disorder, BPD, bipolar, have deserve to have more of a place in the common language of people and have a place where they don't need to be fear of shame, but also have a place where someone like you who doesn't have any of these things can feel comfortable asking someone what it's like, or can feel asking a question that might sound stupid or might sound dumb or sound wrong, and not get judged and not get flack for not knowing something that you had no idea what it was about. There needs to be a safe place for the normal person, the regular person who isn't dealing or feeling any of this, that they can go ask questions and speak up and learn from failures that they might make when talking to someone or taking guesses about what they're feeling or taking guess about what's happening. Um, because without that, people will be too afraid to learn more because they're like, I'm not going to learn. I'm not going to talk out. I'm not going to speak up on this tweet or this conversation because I don't have a voice. I don't have enough knowledge. The thing is, just because you don't have knowledge, you can't learn. And you should be able to learn at that moment in that time and not feel like you are going to be ridiculed or canceled or anything else like that. This conversation went a little different than I was thinking, but I think it's a good topic, a good place to have. And I want to dive more. I will dive more on this area because I want to have Mike on. And I definitely want to have some other people on to talk to about it because it's far more common than we think and is an area that I think will help a lot of people when you can get help, like the MDMA therapy. That is going to make a huge change in this world. All right. I appreciate you listening to my rambling on this one. I'm trying to find my vibe with the Journal of a Human. I'm trying to find my flow and where I'm going with these things. I don't want them to be a bullet point, hear this, hear that, hear this, and then take off. I think that honest conversations like this, like I had with Mike, and the conversations like you have a real human might make the more effect long term and help some people and stand out from other areas where people are too afraid to talk about some subjects. So please bear with me. They will get better as they go. Thank y'all so much. And I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget, Monday through Friday, 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. You can catch me on Twitter, on LinkedIn as soon as I can get it, on YouTube, and on Facebook. Love y'all. Check out Never Alone and the newsletter, which is coming out real soon.